500. I think we raised it $100 in the last 7 years. But
Yeah.
no, I disagree with anything you said. In fact,
What I love about the things you offer are that there's going to be transparency with our policies as we're going through the process. Neola will post them to board docs in draft form. So we'll be able to have this more collaborative or like community process, whereas what we were doing was in a session with which maybe Katie attended previously or didn't. You didn't even attend those. You didn't attend those. So essentially in private, even though it was a public session, we were working out, you know, these policies. Then we'd come to a board meeting and we'd approve a first reading without really going in depth or posting it. So it's like, I think that's going to be a really great part of this process. They're also going to create a policy book for us and maintain it on board docs. Those things sound, and we're still going to be impactful and part of the process. We still get to lend our voice, but we're not going to be doing all that grunt work. And the place where I disagree with you about this not being fiscally responsible is I think that we have a much better use of Allison's time and our administration's time by giving them this more defined process and support to get through it and to create policies. Like, there is not a world in which anybody should be transcribing word for word policies and dictating what we're telling them as we work it out in real time and then managing board. It's just, I think that is a waste of our time. And I think the impact our administrators can have on our teachers who have that impact on our students is going to be worth this initial cost. And this isn't our fault. Like, I mean, like this, we walked into these policies, all of us, and, you know, like for whatever reason, we are where we are and we don't have solid footing. And I'm frankly very terrified at the gaps that we don't even know we have, because every time I look, I'm like, where's that policy and who, like, you know, so I feel like this will be, like you said, a very good place for us all to sort of start from, to have that confidence. So that's it. Ben, did you have another ad that you wanted to do quickly?
Yeah, I just wanted to say we did get policies flagged, and then we did get recommended language or recommended changes. So it's not like we were just going from nothing.
Right. We were just we had a guide. It was like, I'd say they gave us a framework and a template, and then we were duking it out very
Well-
respectfully and professionally.
Yeah, and we did a good job with what we did.
And the $25 a month that I get paid for the 20 hours in a month that I would put in to researching the policies, the laws, and how the language could be more inclusive and equitable and what other districts did, that's what we're paying, like we're paying them for that expertise. I'm not a school policy
Well,
expert,
but we had someone come in for a much cheaper option.
but I personally didn't find them to provide the,
So
Guidance
all,
that I
all I'm
need.
saying, and like the wage thing is, cause like we're here, we know what the compensation is, but we did it for a reason, so.
I'm sorry, that was bad.
No,
of me to say.
I'm not, but I'm just saying like, that possibly could be something that as a board, we could have the responsibility of doing that.
That's a fair.
So
point.
so I'm not bringing it up, but I'm just saying that.
Yeah.
That is something, as a board, we could collectively say, hey, you know what, this is great, a great service, but there's a cheaper option. And then we can use these funds for something that's impactful on student achievement.
It's actually not that, it's not cheaper or not that much cheaper when you look
Yeah.
at
It was like
You-
half.
Side by side.
it. No, it's not half, it's not, if you look at the document. Anyway, I'm sorry, but Carla, did you have, if you guys want to add one last thing, then
Yeah.
I
One
might
quick last thing.
call the question.
It was on my list and I forgot to say it. I just want to reiterate that I want Allison to use her time better than posting and like being the word I keep using, amanuensis, being the person who's trying to herd these cats and get us focused on writing specific policies. And I just found it to be unwieldy. So I just want to agree with you that Allison, I'd like you to use your time on other things. And also, I just remember that I was the swing vote. It was in my first month and you guys were voting on this and I said yes to WASB and not that there's anything wrong with WASB, but I regret that vote. I wish we had moved to Neola sooner. So, I just think it'll be much more efficient. We're also going to read the policies, but I think it would be good to have that stronger support.
Yeah. Okay, well, if there's nothing else for discussion, we have a motion, we have a second, we can do a roll call vote. Danielle Bailey votes yes. Ben Wynn,
No,
Carla Pennington Cross, yes. Karen Cronwell, yes. Motion passes 3-1. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
And for your
I'm gonna
patience.
go with pizza.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
All right. Moving on to another proposal.
Allison, I'll be in touch.
Sounds good. So again, this is something where we've had the proposal, we've met with the consultant. Allison has made a recommendation that the board approve the proposal for equity work with Dimitri Beekman, All Drive LLC for the 2023-2024 school year. Is there anything you want to preface?
I don't know if there's a lot to add. We're gonna actually get into some of the planning that we've
Right.
been doing in a later agenda item, but just the alignment to all the work that we want to do. We need a foundation where teachers are examining this, because it has an impact on culture and climate in the classroom and what we were just talking about, making sure all students feel that they belong. And so I love the idea that it's us first doing it and examining our biases and doing that work on ourselves and modeling that for staff and then asking them to do the same. So I think it's, there's strong alignment to our sale plan, which will eventually flow into our strategic plan, and the equity lens and non-negotiables that we're just approved.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve the proposal for equity work with All Drive, Dimitri Beekman?
This is the proposal that was,
Was presented at
At
our
the-
CAL.
yeah.
And it's also in the administrative content if you want to review it.
I'll move.
Okay,
So moved.
and I'll second. And for discussion, let's just do the same. We'll just go down the row. Karen, if you feel comfortable starting, if you have comments, questions, or nothing, whatever.
I mean, I like the idea. I think that the presentation was interesting and it's certainly something that the district should explore. I can appreciate it is it's an expense. But I also don't think that in-house, it's easy to have that kind of talent to facilitate that kind of work.
No, I think I covered my thoughts at the town meeting. I enjoyed meeting Dimitri and seeing him work with our people.
I'm gonna sound like a broken record,
We know, I know.
but no, it needs to be said, every time we spend a lot of money on consultants.
And I apologize, because there's an agenda, part of the budget update has this, and I almost feel like we should have reversed the order, so I
It's okay.
apologize for that.
It's okay.
Well, one, we had hired someone in 2016 to do this with us, and I mean, there, for student outcomes, it didn't look like there was an,
The ICS work,
yeah.
but it wasn't completed, right?
okay,
And people who led that effort are gone.
true. And so, yes, I mean, that is also context. But a lot of money was spent on that and nothing, I mean, I can't give you tangible evidence of something that occurred because of something. I mean, essentially, we could not have it. And probably the same thing would have happened. Like, there's no evidence, right? And it's the same thing here. We have evidence of high impact areas that we can spend money on. Now, you know, like I was saying before, direct instruction, knowledge rich curriculum, formative assessment, phonics, you know, explicit instruction. So, you know, so it's just difficult if we keep on putting money in areas where we don't know. Now, one argument that I didn't hear, but could have been said, is maybe this will improve student relationships with teachers, and that's a high impact area. But that wasn't said. So it kind of,
Wasn't said by who?
it wasn't part of the proposal. It's not saying that, hey, this is a high impact area, and this is how I'm going to show that the student relationships have improved with teachers. There's no evidence. You know, and so it might happen, but where was it in the proposal saying that, hey, this is the high impact area that we're helping, and this is how we're going to show that growth? Because if you can do that, yeah, that's great, spend money on that. But I don't see that. And so this is the thing. You have consultants come in and they will say, I'll do this for you. And then it's like, well, how are you going to show us the evidence? You know, and so anyway, that's my point with consultants. You can see I have like, we need to be purposeful with where we're spending our money.
So the only things I would say to that are, I do believe they talked about that this is like a phase one, and if we were to continue this work, so to me, this seems like the foundation means we all have to understand the work in order to evaluate it and in order to understand its impact. That's sort of my, and then there are markers and data and things that he will use. And he seemed actually very confident that he would be able to show us those data, those markers, that would improve over time, and had that data. And I don't remember if that was part of phase two anyway. But anyway, I'm very excited to do this work too. So I think, do you feel like there's more to say that you haven't said?
Yeah, so but he's worked with other districts, so why didn't he come with that evidence?
Did you ask him for that evidence at the
Well,
time?
but you would think that someone proposing this much money would say, hey, like, here's the evidence of what I do has high impact.
I would posit that it is implied. So if you're already on board and asking somebody to come and do equity work, you understand the positive impact that could have. Quite possibly that may be the assumption. And that if that was information you wanted, I would have asked for it.
Okay.
But that's just, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I like your point about this idea of data and relationships. That's a note for him. They should emphasize that.
Well, he talked about it.
Yeah, I
you
think, I mean,
asked
I
about
think
it.
culture inclusion.
He spoke specifically about Platteville and Waupun, how there was improved engagement, better relationships. He talked
Oh.
about attendance and gap improvements, especially in
attendance would be-
LGBTQ and disability populations. He answered specifically.
So if you can show that attendance rates go up because of this, then
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what he
That's
talked about.
wonderful, but I don't see that.
I hope you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, no, I
When we
also,
get
because
that
it's,
data.
I mean, I also hope I'll be pleasantly surprised, because
Yeah.
it sounds like we're gonna spend the money
And
on
then-
this, and I don't want it to
Yeah.
fail.
Right, and the last piece is, I
Yes.
think, when we get to the budget, if I'm understanding right, it was like a 0% of our budget is spent on consultants.
Okay, that's
Well, we'll get to it when we talk
That's
about it, when we
not
get there.
true.
Okay, well then, I'm just saying, that was the,
of the budget
that's-
left over.
No, in the new
It's
one,
like
we put everything in
0.25%.
utilities.
a
It's
very
very
small, a
sim-
very
Yeah,
nominal,
we
but
added those other pieces.
we can talk about
It
that when we
depends
move
what we
on.
choose to be our denominator, yes.
Which, if everybody is okay with closing the discussion and just voting now?
Yes.
Okay. So let's just do a roll call vote. Danielle Bailey votes aye. Ben Wynn,
Nope,
Carla Pennington Cross.
Aye.
Karen Cromwell.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-1. And board work at a glance.
So this is just a draft discussion item.
Mhm.
So, and we've started doing this as an administrative team too, which is really exciting. We have like a whole year mapped out that we've been just plugging things into for planning purposes. So I linked the draft. I put some pieces in there that are really consistent pieces. I added some of our survey pieces because I looked at when we gave the student engagement, the staff engagement, and the family surveys, so that we could consistently have times that those are gonna be reported out. There are certain pieces that happen at certain times of the year, like personnel changes. Like if you look at July, we always have to do the notice of academic standards, and seclusion restraint, school nurse report. So just an attempt to try to get some things mapped out. Some of this will obviously flex, and we'll probably be adding things, especially as we go into having a solid 3 to 5 year strategic plan. I mapped out what I thought would be the times that we would come and check in on the plan based on when we do some of our screeners, but we've talked a lot as a team about pulling in other data sources to track student progress, so that could adjust a little bit depending on when the board maybe wants us to report those pieces out, but you can kind of see, and then I threw in, again, we're gonna be getting some training on the WASB superintendent evaluation tool, but I tried to throw in some dates. I bolded those because those are for discussion. For me, in my mind, it makes sense if we're doing sort of a final approval of my goals as we kick off the school year, so I put something in there in September, and then I also put November because there's that all important January 15th date. So if we were to also review my goals and talk about contract in November, that would ensure that you would, should you make a decision to part ways, get that 30 days notice in prior to January 15th. So I was just kind of trying to think through that timeline too, so that the board would always have that consistently. We've got open enrollment in January. We've got, like, again, some of those surveys. So the DAB survey, I threw some of the resolutions in there that we've consistently done at different months. I put in a board self-evaluation in March, because I know we talked about doing that in spring. So really, this is just like my brain, like my brainstorming of this, but definitely something we could probably, I'm guessing maybe go deeper into, like a cow meeting.
Mhm.
Would make a lot of sense,
Yeah,
but
let's,
just to bring a draft so that,
can we put it on you think a July cow for like initial
actually, I
feedback?
think we just have one board.
Oh, you're
Maybe
right,
August cow?
August,
Yep,
yeah,
August
August cow, and so just everybody kind of review and see where your questions and comments are. We can even offer you feedback now, I imagine, right?
Yeah, anything
I
that
mean,
like
like
you're
between
thinking
now and
this
then,
should
yeah, right,
be-
exactly. I just like two very small things I sort of thought of, like for the things that are mandated or by state statute, like perhaps a notation, like this is required,
or a different color.
something like that, like something we have to do. This is,
A
you know, this is something just for practice or our policy, so there's some delineation. And then I liked getting like Parkway Glen Hill updates periodically, and I think I saw some discipline stuff, but like that, the data reporting out, but I don't know if that would fall under teaching and learning, or if that would be its own piece, or.
In my mind, I was thinking it was gonna be part of the data report out, and it's gonna fold into strategic plan updates, right? So if we come and we say, okay, so this is one of our pillars, here's all the progress monitoring that we're doing, or here's all our strategies and how we're progress monitoring. So one of them might be student engagement, and so then we're talking about attendance, behavior, student surveys, you know, like that's gonna just fold into that strategic planning update piece, which would include the schools. So they would be a part of those presentations.
Anybody else have any just like initial thoughts or comments? Oh, yeah, go ahead. Well, this is actually your idea that you had. I just want to kind of, something like this, but that's like a calendar of events, like, so something that be a part of
Yes, yeah.
onboarding would be this board work at a glance, but also like, here are the events we know happen every year, even if like we don't have dates for everything maybe.
Yeah.
So that we can start like planning board member participation. I just think it's
I liked the way you put it, like normalizing our presence.
normalized.
So it's less freaky when you show up, right? That we're just here to support and be present, and because we're part of the community.
Yeah, I
Right,
feel
and not
like this, I
because
feel like
we're
those,
like-
these two things kind of go hand in hand and are part of, should be part of our like onboarding process and the norms process, that our board norms, talking about like presence and expectations, things like that. I think it would be good to have in preparation, right? So it feeds into our board norms as well that we would want to work on.
The only other thing I would add right now is that I've been thinking a lot about this idea of keying board oversight and like our meeting calendar and all that to specific policies, which maybe we can't really do clearly until we get through all our policies, but it would
We
be,
can,
it would be a pretty strong annual calendar if for each item that's on here, we have referenced in this calendar each of the policies that.
and you'd have to update that though if we do.
I think
Update.
do one thing at a time.
times year.
Well,
Just keep it a process. I think this is
no, but
great.
But you know what I mean, like this idea that our oversight,
Yeah,
if we are getting a report as a school board on something, we're getting it because it falls under a particular policy, right?
Yeah.
And we always end up having questions. Did you comply? Did you comply?
Yeah.
And we're always trying to
Yeah.
figure that out. So wouldn't it be magical if those applicable policies, rules, or whatever were already just naturally tagged?
I think I would
actually
do
Wouldn't
it.
that be in the minutes?
What?
Or wouldn't that be in our agenda?
That's what I was thinking. I was
Sometimes
thinking
it is,
it's
sometimes, right,
but it
sometimes we get here and we end up asking the questions and we're like,
I would
oh,
like to like make it more systematic or uniform to for our
Yes, it
monthly
should be on the
agenda.
yeah.
For
But it would
any
make it
agenda
easier
item
if
to
it was
have
in this
any
calendar.
implicated policies.
Yeah, why don't we
Right?
let her do this for like 6 months? And then add that other component or
Well,
something
we're
like
working
that.
on this
Yeah.
too.
And maybe things that like are real, like we could start with the things that are super obvious, right? Like that are connected to policies. But I think linking it here would actually make it easier
Because
than.
then you'd
to do
always
the
be able to
agenda,
go
'cause
back
it'd be
to it.
right there, and
Oh,
I
I
think
see
you're
what
like
you're saying.
searching, like,
Yeah,
just
that's
so
true.
like doing this as we go and like
Carla,
having
she
it.
likes your idea.
And when
She
they,
likes your idea.
I'm just thinking if it's linked in here, it's
What?
actually easier to create an
But-
agenda because they're
Yes.
all. right
Exactly, that's
here,
what we were
like,
just
but-
whispering here.
But to
So it
Ben's
would make it a
point,
lot easier to make your agenda.
this is a draft.
Yeah.
And so,
So let's
that it
just-
could be a
Yeah.
layer, but
Yeah,
it could be a
Let's
goal.
let her, we can finalize it, let her do it, and then I think it's not a bad idea, but maybe
Just build.
wait
it
a
in.
little bit. So, like, let's get this kind of,
Pace yourself.
well,
Don't-
like 6
don't
months.
Get
you know,
burned
or-
out.
I don't know,
6 months. That's-
or something, like, you
And
know,
as far as the
arbitrary.
updates, we'd be okay, because I think when he's saying they come twice a year to update it, it would still be the same policy.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
you're
policy
right.
number
It
would
would just be
change.
updated, whatever needs to be updated, so it wouldn't change. if it's linked.
It's a little bit broken. This is how it's coming out. Okay. Cool. Well, I appreciate you making this reality because I feel like we were dreaming this up and now it's in front of us. So
Pretty
we're
cool.
we can keep working on it.
Forward.
Okay. Getting to the moment they've all been waiting for. We are moving on then to the consent agenda. The consent agenda contains approval of financials, it contains approval of minutes, it contains personnel changes, it contains approval of pause. It's a, I can check them, I don't disagree, I can check them later. It's,
I can show you how to do it.
but it's great.
It's a priority.
Well, sorry, hold on, let me, okay.
Sorry.
Approval of shared services, ad hoc equity committee renewal, and air handling unit for the pool area. I would actually like to move that we just pull out the ad hoc equity committee renewals. And just quickly touch on it after the consent agenda. Is there a second to the motion?
Can we pull it G2 so they can just kind of walk us through that?
Sure. Yeah, we have. So F and G we're gonna pull out. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda minus
A3.
item F and item G.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, voice vote, aye.
Aye.
Okay, so, now is, wait. Did you just approve the consent agenda then?
Minus
Yes.
F.
Okay, great. I'm so sorry. Okay, moving on. So, so the ad hoc equity committee renewal, I just wanted to make a point to say, I'm very proud of the work the committee has done this year, that we've created those foundational documents. They've been handed off to the administration to implement and for all of us to utilize. The goal that we have sort of talked about is that we will, as a committee next year, we'd like to focus more on community on engagement and learning and that, as opposed to these like this very sort of technical thing we have done. And I think that that will be a very important piece to accompany all of the other work going on. And the equity committee is celebrating the work that we did.
Oh, yes.
Next week, Wednesday, at 5 o'clock at Maslowski Park Beer Garden. Denise made a really cute flyer I'm gonna share out with people. Oh, you did? Awesome. Oh, you did?
And
Oh, thank
campus and it's-
you.
yes, it went out, yeah.
Great, so I'm very excited, so plug that, come to that, that'll be fun. We're gonna celebrate and just all daydream about our community and equity together. So I would like to see if there's a motion to approve the equity committee for the next school year, 2023 to 2024.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Make a comment.
Yeah, discussion.
I just wanted to share that I had a policy looked for this one.
You did. You did.
Well done, Ross.
That's great. All in favor, voice vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. Awesome. Okay, Ben, or no, air handling unit for the pool area. So the quote, it was actually in your
Yeah, I
executive
apologize. It was in the
summary.
executive summary.
Do you have specific questions or do you want to just do?
No,
an
I
overview?
didn't see that, so
Yeah,
I
I
was like,
apologize. It's linked in there, so.
Well,
can you just like,
Yeah.
walk me through it?
Yeah, it's in the pool area.
So what's the difference between the net sum and then what's option one?
Okay, so job scope will be above for the net sum.
And then there's like option one, right?
Is that an extra option? Add a coding for protection. That's how I
Well,
read it.
Is there
Oh,
an
it did
option
look like,
two?
it did look like an option.
Or,
I read it like it was an option.
To add like an add-on.
It might not be.
is there an option two? Or like,
I'm gonna be honest with you, Ms. Johnson is. She just said we have to replace this, and so this was the quote that she shared that Mike Carlson got.
Where's the quote? Where did you find it?
Says the job scope on there. I don't think there's an option to.
well, I mean, is it the sum of those
Yeah,
two?
so it's gotta be the sum.
Oh, it's in the
The
consent
net sum
agenda.
56, 4,
Executive
50.
summary, executive summary.
Got it. And then if you add the coding, it's really 69. No, 70,000,
Yes.
70,100.
I mean, I guess I have no context to know if that's like, I mean, obviously we have to get it done. I mean, I know
Yeah.
pools, you know,
I'm
but,
assuming Lindsay usually gets multiple quotes,
but
right?
yeah, I don't, no, and so I have no
Yeah,
idea
I'm trying
what
to
the
find
market is for that right now. And that's kind of, I mean,
Yeah.
Is
I'm
this
sure
like-
Mike-
is this something that has to be done now? Like, is this an emergency or is it
Yeah.
something that can wait for Cal?
I think they were noting that they wanted to be able to do it so that would be ready to open in September when the
Because they have
students
to
come
order.
back.
Well, okay, cause like I understand the urgency for pools, like I get
Yeah,
it.
they said there's a
But-
10-week lead time on getting the new unit.
I just,
and
it's
they wanna
hard,
Get it done before school starts.
it's hard to, cause from, you know, our perspective then, or my perspective, just sitting here, you know, it's just, because I don't know, I don't know what the market is for this, I don't know, like, I guess, I'm sure they've done
Yeah,
their
I
due
think,
diligence.
I think normally we would, if this is something of this,
That's all, that's a lot,
cost has to seek at least three
and I don't see those,
bids. So, and normally they're included, so I think perhaps we should ask for that ahead of time.
we-
And
okay.
then Lindsay is out ill, so.
Can we
even
do
if
like a-
asked it,
okay, well, I mean, could we, I mean, worst case scenario, we could do a special meeting to, I mean, like, is it responsible of us to approve something without the, I mean, it takes.
Well, I'm reading the rationale as it needs to be replaced and date back to the seventies.
No, yeah, I'm not
So it
arguing
needs to be
that. I
replaced.
just don't know what the market is. So like, that's why
I-
typically there's, 3 options or
Yeah,
what is it?
I guess in this moment I have confidence that Lindsay probably picked.
Well, I know, but like, so do
We've also
I.
used Dillett Mechanical for a number
Right, I
of
was gonna say, I
projects.
think
Like,
this is
they
just
always
our-
have.
I'm not,
Oh.
I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it. I'm not, we have to
Right.
do it. I'm not saying that it's not
No, I
where we
get
have to
what
put our
you're
money,
saying.
but
There's no
like,
triangulation of data, there's no comparison.
and we're
Do you know what I
supposed
mean?
to
Like,
do
this is a
that.
part. No,
This would be a great place.
No,
to have a
pools are
policy.
super, like, I
No,
remember
I'm
they
asking-
are super
No,
expensive.
I'm
she's,
asking,
she's asking
is it
if our policy
contractors
requires
that we need
us to
to
get
put out to
multiple
RFP,
bids.
or
Probably not then,
I guess-
probably not.
That's my
Precedent
wondering.
though, we typically,
like, we just bought a new, what was the plow thing or whatever? Like, do you know what I mean? It was like an actual item. Like, that's what I'm not sure about. Like, do we go out for bid for contractors or for just replacement parts?
Yeah,
This is just a
yeah.
replacement part.
Is there
Yeah.
a policy on that?
Yes,
Well, that's her question.
there is.
Have we
so I'm sorry,
renovated in the
I
past
It
year?
was recently.
reeled this, but,
Okay, well,
I mean, I'm okay doing a special board, I mean, it wouldn't take very long, she would just email us the 3, I'm sure she's done it. I mean, it's not like,
she might not have had to.
Yeah, I don't know if she
That's what
did.
I'm trying to-
is what I'm
Would it be
saying.
under board operations?
Okay, it's board policy.
I mean, we did it with the roofing, right?
It's gonna be here. Oh, thank you. What did
She said
say?
it's not a bid, it's a part that has to be ordered.
Okay.
There aren't other companies that can do this.
Great.
Okay, all right.
Got it.
Amazing.
That's,
Thank
that was
you.
what I was wondering if.
But that
if we were
information would be
replacement
helpful in
parts
the
Yeah,
summary
well, I-
too, right?
Like
Yes.
hiring
So no-
contractors.
I don't know how many pool companies are in
Right,
Wisconsin.
so that is where this idea of these policies being, like, comes into
There is
place.
where
So
we
if there was
find
no
it.
policy, then that statement that like, there are no policies, this is a bid, I can do this. One, it's
Or this is.
hard to find part, or only person that can
Right.
get
Is it
it.
gonna make the air quality better in there?
Air
Because the air
quality
quality
is
is pretty
never
bad.
good.
Oh.
Oh, no, I've been in pools where they're good.
Oh, did we have discussion before a motion?
I move that we
Oh.
approve this.
It's already been moved,
Okay,
right? Hasn't it? Oh, maybe
Come
I
on
don't-
now.
second.
I don't think so. Okay, Karn and then Carla. We've had discussion inappropriately. Please nobody tell Karn's husband. Just kidding.
He's probably watching.
Oh.
Karen's husband, who?
No, nobody's asking.
Oh, I-
It was
I'm actually upset about that.
Wow.
Rude. Okay, well.
It's giving you
good job.
your
These
space.
People are busy.
All right, we got an active motion finally.
Okay, all in favor, voice vote?
I,
Aye, passed unanimously. Thank you for your patience. We are moving on to department update action planning.
Jenica's giving you all a paper copy. We're gonna go through our action planning steps, and before I start, I wanted to talk about the district equity lens that we all share. We're kind of a work in progress about how we're applying, or the manner in which we're applying the district equity lens to our work. But just know that as we discussed and reviewed our steps, equity was always at the forefront of our conversation. We did a lot of pushing on each other, back and forth with some of our decision making, with some really great conversation. But we wanted to just let you know that we did use that district equity lens as we did the plan. Okay, this is a working document, so you will see that there are actions that are complete, some actions that are in progress, and there are even some things that have not been started yet. We are very, very busy in the summer. So we'll start right at the top. And the first thing you've already heard about was the Fast Bridge training. You've heard about Fast Bridge. That is a really important tool we're using for student progress monitoring, particularly for students receiving academic interventions. And it's also a tool we're going to be using for screening in the area of social emotional learning for students at the elementary level. And just because I know somebody will ask, you'll see a little asterisk here. We're going to continue to use the Strengths and Difficulties questionnaire as our universal screener for Glen Hills.
next piece is leadership learning around the RTI process. So we sent a team to the RTI conference. It was SS team members, coaches, administration. And we really worked to develop an understanding around what the needs are around response to intervention and building a culture of collective responsibility, thinking about in tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, what are teacher team essential actions, and then what are school-wide essential actions. So kind of really digging into that. And then also, how are we going to grow leadership within our buildings, in each school buildings and across the district by developing guiding coalitions in each building. So kind of digging into the next piece of that, planning RTI implementation, building those guiding coalition teams. So we created a selection process and an application. So we had lots of teachers apply to be on the guiding coalition, and then team members were picked to be a part of the guiding coalitions. And then we also had some initial meetings to discuss norms, roles and responsibilities, and then to start determining some team goals. So building principles are the leads. I should say not even the leads, they're the facilitators of the guiding coalitions, and the teams are going to be leading the work around a lot of the RTI implementation.
We're really excited about the number of teachers that are interested in helping lead this work. We have some amazing teachers, as you know, in our school district, and people that are really committed to building, to us kind of building forward in terms of our response.
And we did do some, we did a presentation to all staff around this, so they kind of knew kind of where we're going and what direction we're going in. And then we also asked for survey results around really thinking about collective responsibility. So within the RTI work handbook, which was covered in that conference, there were several surveys that we wanted to survey staff with. And one of them was on collective responsibility. The other one was on simplifying RTI culture. And then the last one was on trust within your team. So within that, we kind of looked through all the data that we collected around the survey from staff, and two areas that we thought were really important. Those results there was number 1 and number 2. And number 1, we show teachers why there is a need for change. So we're constantly, consistently sharing that information and being really clear on that. Giving the why is so important. And then also that it's evident that learning for all is a core purpose in not only our schools, but as a district as a whole within the community. So those are 2 things that we really wanted to focus on. And then number 3, that was an area that we had 62% agreement, and we picked that as a focus area that we believe that everyone on the team is pulling in the same direction. So we're flipping to page 2. So flip, just flip. Yeah.
Oh, got it.
So number,
We should have stapled them.
yeah, we should have, yeah, we can fix it. She doesn't staple.
Can I ask you what the J's and K's mean?
That's for
Jennifer.
them.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
They're
Oh.
planning. These are planning.
That's our little years. We could have color coded. But we felt that was an area of growth that we're all pulling together in the same direction. And really this is like district wide, again, that collective responsibility of all of us moving in the same direction.
And then we wanted to really look at some of our student engagement survey results. And with our student engagement surveys, we had different but aligned question sets for that elementary level versus the older students here at Glen Hills. And some of the data that really stood out to us were really the peer-to-peer relationships and respect, where I kind of identified as our most significant area of need that our students reported to us district-wide. And we teased out the questions that really we felt aligned to that. And the first one was a response from Glen Hills. You can see it's highlighted there. The question was whether or not students show respect for one another, with only 44% of our students agreeing with that statement. And we felt that that was something we really needed to go after. And then at Parkway, the same question, students show respect for each other at the school. 77.85% saying yes, but but we really also wanted to share that at the third grade level, only 51% of students.
So you did yes and no for Parkway and then a 5 scale or
Yeah.
5, okay,
Right.
so it's not really comparable.
It was, it was
It's not
smiley
apples to
faces.
apples.
Yeah,
Not apples to
it was
apples.
like a smiley face or a sad face for
Yeah.
the K-5 students. It was
So it's different, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is different, but those were the
Well,
things
it's
that. it
developmentally appropriate.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's, no, but I'm just saying that it,
The-
the 44%, 77%, it's hard to, I mean,
Yeah.
that's all
I
I'm
think
saying.
it's not
Yes,
necessarily
versus-
meant to be inter-school comparisons though, right? It's a
Right.
trust school comparison.
One of the things we noticed was students felt like the adults, that was strong. Like respect with adults to kids, but then kid to kid.
And we just heard that
Yeah.
earlier in the
Right, yeah.
conversation, so.
So even at Glen Hills, kids feel like teachers respect them.
And you guys will get the whole
Yes.
survey
Okay.
too.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
that's
great.
different at the next board meeting.
There's a lot of data to go through.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we can also just read it ahead of time too.
Yep.
Yeah.
You guys will get it,
Yeah.
yep. You get the whole
But,
report,
no, yeah, that's great.
sorry.
And then we'll move down to the data that we use that's more on the student outcome or student specific data.
So we also looked at the STAR data and compared it to our goal, that 5% increase in achievement. So we had a 5% increase, so we met the goal in ELA for the district, and then we had a 6% increase for math. So we met the goal for achievement,
Yeah, 6% of what?
6% growth or 6% achievement rate. So we increased our number of students that were advanced and proficient on STAR
Okay,
by
who
6%.
of people labeled
Yeah.
advanced and
Yeah, so
proficient.
that was the
That's
goal,
amazing.
was 5%. The gaps are still there, because what happened was, is 11% of students who were white.
Yeah.
They 11% growth, and then for the other areas were between 3 and 6%.
Okay, and then, so that's good to know, so it's advanced proficient, that's how you define the 6%
Yeah.
increase.
So that's comparable to forward, so
but
we have
then-
set
Yeah,
from the
sorry,
state.
yeah, sorry, did you also, I know this also does I know the growth or how much growth you have isn't necessarily, accurate in the sense where they're like, oh, you've gone up 2 grade levels, or something, but is there some type of, did you also look at that at all?
For our school goal, we did not
Oh, okay,
look at growth, but we had some discussions around
Got
looking
it.
at growth.
Okay.
But what we actually decided is to shift to utilizing essential standards and actually looking at the essential standards that we're utilizing within each grade level and each content area, and specifically targeting them on STAR. So we really are intentional teaching that we're doing in our classroom and our CFAs and everything else. Like what's happening in our classroom, is it happening on STAR?
Yeah.
So instead of doing all the standards
Right,
and everything, just getting real tight and intentional.
so then,
So that's where we'd like to go.
so you look at sorry,
Is that a term of art, essential standards?
it's just like a standard in the,
But
Like
priority
priorities.
standards,
Priority
what are the
standards.
most important things students need to know?
Oh, that's
in
just
order to-
something you've
Well-
qualitatively decided to pull from the stars.
Yeah.
Okay.
like
teachers-
ratios and proportions,
Like
things like that.
fractions, kids
Yeah,
have to
right,
know
yeah.
fractions, they have to know multiplication.
but that's one of the
Right.
sections in the STAR test, where
Yeah, you
it
can
says,
break
here's
it
how
up,
you
break it
performed on
down.
fractions,
Yep.
here's how you did ratios, proportions
Yeah.
here, overall, right, because ratios and proportions would include fractions,
It breaks it
decimals,
out by
things like
standard even on STAR.
okay, and so you looked at.
We did
Okay,
not,
so then
that's
it was
where
like
we're
met
going.
or not met,
That's where we're going.
okay,
And we'll talk about that.
yeah, no,
when we
yeah,
get to
I was kind of going on a tangent there, I was just
No, it's
curious.
good. The next piece we looked at as a leadership team was attendance data. We do feel that as a district, we need to do better with attendance. So our action steps really are, number one, is really situate our attendance data so that it's always in our face, more readily available to us. EduClimber is going to help us with that. And then also our school social worker worked on developing an attendance intervention matrix, which looks fantastic. And it really helped us put steps into place students are triggering with their attendance to make sure that we're supporting families in the best way we can and getting their kiddos to school.
Can I ask a question? Did you compare attendance concerns with STAR scores?
That would be interesting. That's exactly what I
Well,
was
I'm
thinking.
sure there's a direct.
I mean, that would be the natural assumption, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But student specific, so when a student is brought to the table with academic concerns, one of the questions we're forcing our teacher teams to ask is the student receiving tier 1 instruction with
Right.
fidelity? Are they coming to school consistently? And oftentimes, the students that are triggering with academic concerns, attendance appears to be a factor. So that's something teacher teams have to start asking, right? So we have to say,
Part
but
of your
why aren't
RTI.
they doing well? But
Yeah.
why, but why, but why? And sometimes it's access. Sometimes they're not getting to school. Yep.
Have you looked at our attendance compared to like other district attendance, like as part of it, the COVID, you know, like, I don't know. Or do you think it's more district specific?
We don't live in the district.
I don't know that
Ours.
anybody's is public.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I guess.
on the school report.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
on,
I could
on
compare
average,
It's not,
I'm just curious. if
That's
we're
right.
waiting
how
for
many
such
days
a-
are we talking about on average here? Like 15, 20, when you're talking about attendance issues? Like,
Any
Well,
10 days
It's
would,
true.
is considered fluid. But
Yeah.
we
so
do
when, but when we're
have-
talking about this, like, what are we talking about?
What do you mean?
When we're talking about attendance issues, like what,
what do they see as an attendance
yeah,
issue?
what are we, I mean, I know
Oh,
10
so
days,
when,
but
are
like,
you asking like when is there a targeted pattern that you notice, like kids who are having academic struggles are usually hitting X percentage of?
Is that what you're
yeah,
asking?
are we looking at like 15, 20, or like, what are we looking at here?
I
Or
don't-
just
I
in
don't know
general?
that you're asking a question that we were actually already talking about.
Oh, no, well, you were saying that there might be a correlation, where there is a correlation between attendance and,
I wasn't
Outcome.
thinking, of a quantitative number
okay.
though.
I was just curious.
like-
Well, it's because, I mean, if you look at, I mean, we know that it does affect student outcomes, because if you look at, well, John Hattie, he has an effect size for summer, right? Summer has an effect size of like -0.2. So we can be sure that, yeah, if we're talking about like 20 days, that's a month of school or more, right?
And there are
So, yeah.
students with 20 days.
Yeah, so that's gonna plummet their,
Yes,
score.
absolutely.
So the work the board can do along with this though, I think, is possibly asking you all to prioritize
Mhm.
our attendance policies, our truancy policies, the open enrollment, like all the things around absences and
Yep.
to correlate with the work you guys are doing.
Thank you. That's important. We also looked at student behavior. One of the things that we really noticed is there's a difference between buildings and how behavior is being coded in Infinite Campus, which is our student information system. It's laborious to record behavior incidents in Infinite Campus, I'm not gonna lie. It takes a lot of time. And so we even question how accurate the behavior data is if it's not a major, right? Or if it's not like a major instance of something that would cause like an office referral, right? Or the response from a building administrator. So one of the action steps we wanted to do was kind of streamline that process for our teachers. EduClimber is also something that will help us report behavior incidents as majors or minors in a simpler way. Anything that has to be reported to the state will have to go in Infinite Campus. So any major incidents that would require a suspension or a restraint or anything like that, that has to go in Infinite Campus. But we even question how valid our own data is because we're inconsistent with how that's being reported right now. We want to make that easier for our teachers.
Well, and some information that might not be known by other board members, but some of the labels in Infinite Campus, in my experience, feel uncomfortable to teachers because the label makes it seem like a really significant incident. And it's the only choice you have. But in reality, the big picture of the incident is it needs to be documented, but it wasn't
right.
so inflammatory as the title.
We have to use whatever Infinite Campus presents to us.
There's a limited amount for that.
We
but
can't, I mean, you have to pay
EduClimber
Infinite
can
Campus a
change.
lot of money to customize anything.
Oh,
And then they
really?
make it available to everybody for free.
And EduClimber allows us to put in whatever we want to put in. so then we can kind of streamline it to exactly what we want, and then what do we want to dig into too? And it also does time and where, and so then we can get all that information.
Will help us see patterns better, so
Yeah.
we know like, okay, what are areas that we kind of need to boost some support in or something.
It might allow it to be more aligned with the equity work, right? Like it allows us to look at things with more normalized.
Wait, so are you gonna go away from Infinite Campus, or are you uploading the majors into
Majors will
EduClimber?
go into Infinite Campus.
Oh, so then
And
you'll
then
just
they'll
upload them, got it.
Some of them will upload, it depends on what has to be recorded out to the state will go into Infinite Campus, and it automatically
okay.
uploads into EduClimber. We're gonna try to use EduClimber for.
Anything, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And hypothetically, you could even track the data to location, right? Like
Yeah.
physical
Yep.
locations of buildings, like this is a
Yeah.
hot spot.
Yep.
You know, and it would help you
At
decide
this
where to put
time,
cameras.
This is where everything's going
Yeah.
down.
And
you
right
know,
now, to pull
recess.
that behavior data, it's just like we said when we talked to you about EduClimber, like sometimes it's like we're mining data and it's kind of exhausting. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
it makes it very difficult, and EduClimber is gonna help us do all of this better.
Co-curriculars, that was another area where we wanted to start importing some of that into EduClimber as well, and tracking more of that engagement, just to have easier access. And then also we can look at grade level students, demographics, all of that within EduClimber as well. So instead of just getting a report of class lists, it just makes it much easier to manage that data again.
The other piece we looked at that we felt was important for us to consider together was the number of special education evaluations that were completed. Our school psychologists were this school year, there were a significant number of special education evaluations. And our percentage of students identified with special education needs is on the rise. And while that's not like really data or information that I feel like I have a specific action step around, but it is kind of a data story that tells us, I wonder if we need to do more work within our tier 1 instruction to make sure our students are getting high quality instruction and intervention to prevent overwhelming our special education students. So
In your
that-
RTI PLC.
the RTI
Support that.
PLC work will support that.
Can I ask another question? I'm sorry, I'm gonna be that annoying person.
It's not annoying.
Was there a particular pattern of areas of consideration for those special education referrals, certain areas of disability?
OHI is a big one, other health impairment was a big category that was identified.
It's like the modern replacement for EPD.
Right,
Yeah.
so a lot of self-regulation concerns.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are you able to say what percentage of evaluations turn into IEPs, result in IEPs?
Okay, so
And if this is off the charts, you don't have to answer me today.
I
if this
do,
is
well, I
coming to
have
us
a
later.
chart, but I don't have a percentage calculated, and I feel like I can't even look at Ben because he'll like really do that math.
He's judging,
At Parkway, of the evaluations that were completed, 33 qualified for special education and 19 did not qualify for special education. And at Glen Hills, 8 qualified for special education, 15 did not qualify for special education but resulted in a 504 plan, and 4 did not qualify for an IEP or a 504. Part of that, I will say, is that we changed our 504 process quite a bit, and that was a result of just kind of cleaning up our processes. So if a parent is requesting a 504 for their student, we do a full special education evaluation, which is very heavy, because there were a lot of requests for 504s, which is another, to me, telling sign that perhaps we really need to boost some of our UDL or our universal design for learning. So people feel that their child's needs are being met in the classroom without having to resort to ensuring through a 504 plan. But just to give you a little bit of perspective, to complete a special education evaluation per student for a school psych is about 8 to 10 hours of work per student. And average cost of completing a special education evaluation is probably about $1,500 if you think about the time, the energy, the stakeholders involved. So it's a really big deal to put a student through a special education evaluation. And it's a very high stakes decision. You're making a really important decision that could impact a child's life, potentially forever. And so that's really
to sale agenda is on there. We just got back from sale. So we're in,
we still like each other.
after 3 days.
Kelly brings it.
I know.
I can still sit here next to you.
It was a really good work time. It wasn't a conference where it was a sit and get. We worked the entire time, creating plans and theory of actions and goals and reviewing the data again. So I'll just share out, you should have it linked there, the district goals. Student learning goal number 1, 100% of our students will show proficiency or above in the essential standards for literacy and math. We are committed to making sure every single student is proficient or above in the essential standards for literacy in math for their grade level. And also that collective efficacy piece, 80% or more of staff and students will share the belief that our collective actions positively impact student outcomes. So
We argued if it should be 80 or 100%.
So how does Carrie feel about that number?
Can you tell me what you're reading from? I'm trying.
Oh, it's the adult learning.
It was
framework.
a
Okay.
link in there.
I'm opening it. Yep.
Sorry.
Okay, got it.
And
Then
then
you
the
scroll down, the goals are on the second.
Ah, there it is. Okay.
the theory of action, I don't know if you want me, I can read it to you if you want. If teachers intentionally and collectively plan instruction around bringing students to mastery on a limited number of essential standards, and if there is collective examination of how students are reaching the standards, then teachers will build strong understanding of and ways to assess the essential standards. And if teachers communicate clear learning intentions, the relevance of the learning and success criteria, then students will
You're
have
tired.
clarity.
It's okay. We got it.
Clarity and active engagement in the learning. And if students have an opportunity to reflect, I'm gonna have this memorized, so I might as well.
Right.
And if students have an
We can
opportunity
chant
to
it together.
reflect on their learning, then teachers can assess and adjust their practices to ensure mastery. And then 100% of students will show proficiency or above in the essential standards for literacy and math. So really being extremely focused. Also on there, we created an adult learning framework around our instructional framework, really focusing in on the beginning of the teaching, the lesson intention, laying that out with teacher clarity, going back to some of Patty's work around teacher clarity, learning targets, talking about what is the learning intention, how is it relevant to the student, and then what is the success criteria so students know how are they successful? Are they going to be meeting it? Will they meet mastery? And then the lesson reflection part. So this is where we can talk about that feedback piece and reflection on the lesson as well. So those are the 2 areas of focus that we'd like to start with our first 100-day plan. I'm really doing training and supports around these pieces.
Is it fair to say, it's just kind of a random thought or question, you see how it says like in the beginning, relevance is stated by the teacher. Is there like some connection or pre-work to say like our equity and our culture building that will help teachers identify like relevance for student population, like when they're looking at, when they make those choices around curriculum and stuff? I mean, that maybe that's just like implied or should be, but I guess
And our goal is to be here.
And we talked
Where?
about using approach,
So,
so
so, so this might be where some teachers may be at.
yeah, so we want them to master.
So we're going to mastery, so where students are leading that, so it really, it's their relevance, and they're coming up with that, themselves.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
So it's a,
That
so
makes
it's a
sense.
The goal
progression.
is mastery, yeah.
So right now, sometimes,
Okay,
an instructor,
right.
during instruction, a
Those
teacher may
things. I
say.
get you.
connection
This
is
is relevant
da-da-da.
because.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that, thank you. I do understand
Making
that.
the connections for students, whereas we want the
And-
students.
I would say I know, I think we have teachers who are at this mastery level.
Yes,
and
we do.
Do that,
Mhm.
and
We do.
that's, so that's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Right.
So utilizing them to
And this will
pull in
be,
others, right? is-
this will be utilized as a self-reflection tool
Oh,
for
okay.
teachers. So
Cool.
this is
Very
really
good.
about their self-reflection.
Cool.
And then they can, we can do a Google survey and kind of see where they're at.
Oh.
And the goal would be for teachers to move across.
And then
Okay.
provide some of that during.
Because we
professional
do have staff that master. it,
Right.
And then what do we do for them? So having some open-ended questions as well.
Okay.
Within the survey.
Well, part of our second goal too about everybody pulling in the right direction and that collective efficacy is we want to get to a space where you're talking about where staff feel really comfortable going into each other's classrooms and learning from each other, but that's culture too, right?
Right,
Like,
right.
And a lot of trust, so.
Right.
That's what I was thinking about. Is this a bit slightly different? Like, is this a tool that would be used, say, by principals when they do observations in classrooms?
We
Would
talked
they be
about
working through the same
walkthroughs
framework?
Potentially, like not evaluation, but just like if we were to do walkthroughs so that we can have a picture of what the system. So it's not individual to teachers, but just as a system, we are here or here
Yeah,
or
we
here.
talked
And we
about
did
being,
that in the
Oh,
past.
we did do that in the past. We talked about being really strategic though, about how we do that. When we did some similar work to this school year, we did walkthroughs. We told teachers we were collecting data, but all of the data was anonymous. So there were no teacher names associated with the data, but we wanted a district snapshot about how we were progressing toward the goal. And part of that was very purposeful because like you said, you wanted to normalize your presence.
Yeah.
We wanted to do that as well. So we want teachers to expect us in their
Yeah.
classrooms and to look forward to us coming in. And to not freak out when we
Right.
walk into a
Right,
room and think that I'm there to evaluate their
Right.
practices. And so we will most likely do this in some way, shape, or form and roll it out in a similar manner. Like, this is not about you, this is about us. And it will help inform us in terms of how we're planning the professional development as well. And then, like Allison said, we really believe in using the group to move the group. There's some masterful teachers that we could also give people time to go and observe one another's practice and take this with and watching each other teach and see these are the things
So
I saw.
let me finish my thought here, because it still begs the question for me. Like, you two are doing this work, but then you've got the principals evaluating the teachers, right? Going through and do formal assessments and observations, and this seems pretty core. These are pretty core skills in teaching. So I'm just sitting here thinking from a space of curiosity, right? How does this compare to whatever principals are doing in their evaluative process? Hypothetically, this should all be aligned.
We
Right,
talked
so-
about alignment, but because principals will do these walkthroughs too on the system, we talked about alignment, but being really clear that it's two separate events.
I see
But-
what you're saying. So
so-
this, you perceive this as like systems coaching and systems growth versus whatever it is the principals do.
when they-
Hypothetically, they may or they may not turn
We
to
talked about
these
when they do
standards.
their evaluations, actually focusing on some of these, but it'll just be a really different like event.
It's like if I had a teacher hat on, I'd be saying, I'm supposed to work on these set of goals for growth in our systems, but when the principals walk through, they're looking for something else,
No.
right? You know what I mean?
No.
I'd be wondering like, where am I
Or they?
situating?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
aligns
My
with
skill
the
development.
educator effectiveness,
With
so
the
we'll pull
rubric,
out
but-
those strands from it, so we
Yeah.
want everything aligned, so we're again all moving in the same direction, have the same focus, moving forward.
It's just like
We
a
talked
timing
about
thing.
that, that's a really good question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so definitely align so that we looked at the rubric to see which areas align, but we don't want, when there's like, so say we're doing our 15-day challenge, we're like, okay, we're gonna be walking through and looking for these things as an entire admin team, they know that that's not personalized. that that's just systems.
Yep.
But then when principals do their evaluation work, it will also align so that we're not asking, you know what I mean, two different things.
So one of the most impactful things that John Hattie talks about is that you can do, if a teacher records himself and watches
Exactly.
themselves teach,
Mhm.
it is one of the most
Yeah.
painful things to do, and I hate it. It's the worst. But it's awful. But it is one of the most,
Yep.
one of the higher areas of impact. So what you could consider, and again, it could be a 5-minute clip.
Right. Yep.
So it doesn't have to be very long. So one thing you could do instead is have the teacher record themselves, or you could go in and record them for 5 minutes. And then you could watch it together for 10 minutes. You know, you talk about areas where they could improve their evaluation with the principal and improve how well they're doing the thing that you're recording, whether it's small group instruction, whole class instruction, how they're assessing students formatively, things like that. And I think that would benefit everyone, because one, it would benefit the students because their habits either get reinforced or a habit changes. Helps the principals because the evaluation's easier then because they're doing a good job. And then it also puts you in a role where you're not evaluative, but you're coaching.
Yep.
But it is painful and people will hate it. So
We used to videotape.
I'm just saying, instead of just doing,
I think we'll get to a place where that peer observation might be through video, it might be in person, it might be a little bit of.
but keep it like 5 minutes now.
Yep.
Otherwise,
That's what we just picked that very
people
beginning
will
or the very end,
revolt.
just to focus on.
Yeah.
Not the entire, not the whole
Agree.
lesson, not the whole lesson.
How
I
you
wanna be a
started
little
and
bit-
how you finish.
Sorry, I want to be a little bit mindful of time.
Well, what I said was very important, just like what you guys were saying.
Oh, no, not you.
No.
Oh my God, I'm so
Thank you,
sorry.
Ben.
No, sorry, Ben. I mean, moving
All of
forward.
us.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah,
also,
all of us. So
okay,
thank
no,
you.
no, that's a
Not
good
you,
point.
all of us.
I read all this.
Yeah,
Could we just, if we have questions, could we
that's what,
just
well, I was
ask?
gonna say, you feel free to do like a high level. of
Yeah, we
what
read
we're
all
saying,
this.
If
It
that's.
was
Want to just do questions?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
How about just
absolutely.
answering any questions? you have?
absolutely.
I have no more after this.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but that's exactly what
No,
I meant.
I
I
have
did
no
not
more.
mean you. I was just like, I know you guys are tired. I appreciate
Yeah.
this. It's actually, this document was just really,
Very
it's like
helpful.
gorgeous. I mean, it's really great. I love it. So thank you. So anyway, so I was like, ooh, anyway, it's giving me the feels. Yeah, so okay, questions. Anybody?
I don't have any more.
These don't have to be answered now. I did have just like, for the RTI stuff, because it's just a newer thing to me. I wonder what ongoing like support looks like for RTI for you guys and for like the principals who end up being facilitators. Do you guys feel like there's like, is there sufficient? Because harkening back to Ben's point about like ICS, we taught all these people ICS and then the knowledge. So I guess I'm just curious if you feel, or like, what does that look like? What is the ongoing support there?
So right now, with RTI, we've been meeting a lot to talk about RTI and try to iron out some of the nitty gritty, but we want to go slow to go fast. And we also feel that we really need our teams. Again, thank you. We need them to really help drive that work. And so far, they've met once.
Okay.
They're meeting again in early August, and then we're gonna kind of iron out some of those details.
Okay, but the principals you said are facilitating those guiding coalitions, so do the principals have good support around this? Like they're versed in this, this is
They
their
all went to training. They all went to training.
one
Went
training?
through training, there's a
Is
book
there-
support, there's a
Okay,
ton of
that's what I
different
was wondering.
resources that we
Okay.
have.
Okay,
And it's
Cool.
all of it really is their solution tree. And so
okay,
there is like additional supports.
I do
And
have
then
a
there's some
question.
other school districts that we've actually gone and seen that are a little further ahead of us, like 1 year ahead in the process, which is really nice. And they're also engaged
okay.
with the systems.
I just have one more question. Can I do that? Okay. For the professional development plan, you've got that great framework. And I'm wondering, do you have like an idea of when you solidify like content or presenters and like what that content, you have that, right?
Yeah, we
feel like
just
you shared
started
it.
it, and we
Okay.
just, like, so what we did is we took that framework and made a copy, so, okay, this is September,
And then
this is
going
October,
through it,
and then
okay.
putting all the details in.
And would
Yeah.
that be something, is that what you would share with the board for like sharing the annual development plan, like your annual PD plan or?
Yeah,
As we start mapping it out.
we need to,
Yeah.
we need to work through it.
My concern though is that I don't want like April to be solid in September.
Well,
because
right, that's,
part of the work is to be responsive. The data we're collecting ongoing, and I feel like if we get too permanent,
yeah,
then we're not meeting teachers.
maybe it's like a part of your, like,
The 100-day plan would be part of
That-
that.
and or I'm just thinking like, if you present, you have the first 3 months planned, you feel solid on those, and you wanna like share that as the beginning of the plan, and then just through updates, like weekly
Yep.
updates even, you could share out.
And we're kind of talking about coming up with, different people to be leads on different strands, right?
Yeah.
So then there'll be different strands throughout there. To
Is
have
it all, do
coverage.
you only use internal or do you for these days will you do external?
A lot of internal.
We've invested in a lot of professional development opportunities for staff, and part of the expectation is if we invest in you to go to the conference, we want you to bring that back.
Yep.
Again,
Okay.
use the group to move the group. And we've got, and there will be needs that we can't cover internally that we may need to tap somebody to help us with. But we're feeling like we're sitting on a wealth of knowledge that we just haven't tapped into well up until this point.
All right, thanks, Karen, what do you got?
I just wanted, with regards to RTI, one of the things that I often hear in my own role professionally is that RTI, some people misunderstand it as only being academic. With okay, good. I just want to make sure, because I feel like that's a really essential piece in our social emotional learning and our mental wellness focus is reflected in that OHI piece.
I'm really glad you
yeah.
brought that up. because
Yeah.
we are
Start today.
I'm doing a book study with a really amazing group of people this summer. It's called the Behavior Solutions Book Study, but RTI has like a skill side and a will side. It's not just academic. It
Right.
also is about behavioral needs. And I will say, we've invested in some of the human capital to really help us with that. They spent a lot of time in react mode and are dying to be at a point where they're providing more preventative
Right.
things
Yeah.
for learners. And so really working through that is going to help us. I think next year we're gonna put our best foot forward in terms of like looking at behavior through an RTI system, but just know that that's not gonna it's not gonna be overnight. But we really see the need to build our collective capacity to meet the needs of students, and not just walkie-talkie, a student support staff person to come and help with the behavior, to like really empower our teachers with some tools as well. And then to build in some intervention times for those kiddos that need something more specific to their needs.
And I was just gonna point out on the framework, we talked about academic or SEL learning intentions. So that's another piece that we talked about is knowing those SEL standards.
The Summer Behavior Solutions Book Study, it was just whoever wanted to sign up to be part of that could. And we got this amazing cross-section of staff that has counselors, psychs, obviously, but also classroom teachers. We have a building sub participating in it. And it's a really great, like, diverse staff group in terms of their position that wanted to be a part of that.
What are you reading?
It's called Behavior Solutions.
Oh, that's the name of the
Yep,
book.
teaching
Yeah.
academic and social
Exactly.
skills through the RTI process.
It's super juicy.
It's
You're gonna get- You know, this is
It's
this is my jam. Oh, is it on there?
Yep, Behavior Solutions.
Got
Teaching
it. You don't have to
academic
say
and
it again.
social skills through the
She said
RTI.
I guess you have to say it again.
No, it's because I told you she did.
Yep,
It's
and
in
and Carla, I got a book study dropout, so I can get that.
Well,
Hey, I want that book back. Do you want to borrow?
I want the
I
book
totally
back.
would borrow it. I have a
Well,
summer reading list I'm building. Where am I gonna find the name of it? But I'll just buy
But
it.
what I really like about it is that it helps with the why. Any other
Thank you. Any other
questions?
questions?
Thank you guys for.
Thank you for being
Beautiful
here so
job.
late.
For being
Yeah.
here and for doing all that work, that sale
Absolutely.
work. It's really exciting. It really is.
Oh.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm so teaching academic and social skills, behavior. Sorry, there it
All
is.
We have a preliminary budget approval on the docket next. And it's recommended that we approve the preliminary budget, and we need to read those out loud to. Like, I always remember somebody like reading the numbers, but do we want to do that? Okay, just checking, maybe you'll just like to hear there.
So obviously it's preliminary, so this is not a permanent budget, but the approval allows us to spend after July 1st, which is why we have to approve.
I don't know.
Carla, you made a note just on the front page in the agenda of how some of that was off.
Oh, yeah.
And what it was she had, so the special ed fund transfers that negative number
Got it.
at the bottom, but she had the word special ed fund in the text at the top. which is
Oh,
what threw
that's where I
everything
got,
off.
okay.
So
it's-
yeah, so I got that corrected, so that's accurate now. I mean, she created a pretty amazing executive summary. The first page is the piece that we were talking about as far as the breakdown. You've got salaries, benefits, transportation, utilities, and supplies, and then because there was a specific ask, she put the consulting number in there, and that's where like it showed out as 0%. Obviously, it's gotta be point something.
It's, okay,
Less
so
than 0.5.
one, since we brought it
We're
up,
not having discussion yet, she's
All right.
presenting.
So
But also, if you-
typically, we probably wouldn't even put that in there, but
Right,
yeah.
right. I was also gonna say, if you don't wanna present that summary, we've all read it. If we
Okay.
wanna move directly to discussion and questions, we can entertain a motion.
so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
So a
Okay,
couple
so-
teeny tiny highlights.
Oh, she wasn't ready.
No, that's okay. I can do it during discussion, right? So a
Okay, yeah.
couple tiny highlights. So salary, just to share the 22-23 bump, that was because of market value adjustments. So that's why that bar looks higher, but that'll level back out. The only other piece was transportation. So it was fuel costs, but then there was also, we paid more to transportation for some of our homeless students and some of our students with IEPs. So that created a bump in transportation. So those are a couple things that she just wanted me to highlight for you guys in the information.
Okay, can I say something?
Sure, Ben.
Okay, so one, it's not necessarily a pay bump, because we are systematically
Okay, that was
reducing.
bad language.
Okay, but
Yeah, okay.
we
I was
are
talking
systematically lowering the standard of living of teachers, because, and it's not no one's fault here. I don't think. But
I apologize for my.
when you only give people CPI increases, and that's the limit to which you negotiate, you're not increasing their standard of living. So there's teachers. So again, I started at 44,500. I ended at 51,000. That is not a raise, because that only is adjustment for inflation. Yet there were teachers that are close to retiring, making close to 80, 90 grand. I would never attain, had I stayed in teaching, I would never have attained that standard of living of those teachers based on the raises. So when we say, consulting fees and all that stuff is 0%, well, this is taken away from an already limited amount of money that could be going to the greatest asset of our district, which are teachers. So I just want to make it clear that I don't think 0% is a totally representative number or proportion of what's going on with school budgets today.
And I apologize for the language, so it was to get everybody where they needed to be to create an equitable pay scale.
Yeah, no, I know, we're
We
doing,
understand.
we're doing,
Doing the dance.
I used.
we're doing, market comparisons and all that stuff, and every teacher across Wisconsin is feeling this, so it needs to be reiterated to everyone in the public and our 0 people watching the Zoom meeting.
We will get, just
There
so
you
in
go.
Lindsay's summary, that we will get a breakdown, like a budget line item breakdown in September for our
Mhm.
September board meeting. So I would just posit, that's the time to kind of dig in and look at what money you think should be going somewhere else.
Again, it's not
Oh,
like.
no, it's fair. It's a good thing to say things out loud in support of teachers and to state your point and to make it clear. I appreciate you doing that. Regarding this proposed budget, I mean, we're being asked to approve the preliminary budget so they can keep spending.
I'm in.
Investing, yes, in our students. I'm so sorry, I haven't offered. If you want to talk, you may. I know. I'm just joking. Yeah, so we have a motion. Do you guys want to have more discussion on this, or would you like to? So we
I'm
have
good.
a lot of time to keep digging in, I'd say. Okay, all in favor of approving the preliminary 2023-2024 school district budget?
I
Aye. Thank you. All right, moving on to the food service contract. What should we know about this?
So we went out to RFP for food service and we only got one back and it was earmarked. Positives is that we had a new food service director who started in the spring. And there were definitely improvements from that point on. So some of it was perhaps a personnel issue that we had here. And then there are some options that they're looking at because we talked to them about like some expectations that we would have moving forward. So some new and different entree options. It's on the board thing. I guess. Sorry. I was like, I'm just gonna read it to you. But we do have a new food service director and he even catered one of our staff events. And it was really interesting because even the staff was like, who brought this food in? This is so great because he's a chef and it was actually really, really good. So we're excited about the food quality being improving a lot with him starting in person.
And is it gonna be like high protein vegetables, things like that?
Yeah, they have certain guidelines they have to
Okay.
follow. Yeah.
Because,
Your policies
Well,
on wellness and
well,
nutrition.
because it used to be like when
Yeah.
you, I mean, I ate lunch here, you know, pizza.
Yeah.
You know, fries,
So
things
we're,
that'll make you snooze.
we're being asked to approve the contract, but it's not really
The
approving the
contract was-
contract, right? It's
There
approving
was no contract
negotiating.
attached, as far as I knew. That was one of my questions. There's no contract for us to see.
And
No,
it
just a
sounds
summary.
like it's not even finalized yet, right? Because their rate is higher than our rate.
So maybe there isn't a contract yet. I just have a process. I have process questions too.
Yeah.
So that's
She
my
did put in
question.
here, approve a contract with earmark.
So we can't
No, there's no contract.
vote to approve a contract. We could find the motion to vote to approve moving forward with them contract, you know, the actual contract when it comes, if anybody wants to. I don't, but if anybody wants
Is
to.
it
No, I
not
think we
for-
just bring it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Motion to
but
table.
wait,
Oh.
we can't take, well, we talked about it. We don't need to take
Oh,
it.
yeah,
We can just
gotcha.
talk
Yeah, we'll
about
just
it.
bring the contract. actual contract.
But before you do that, I don't understand how you RFP and only get one bid. I don't what's the RFP process is what?
It goes out for a certain amount of days.
To where or to who? To specific people?
Well, all three districts did it too.
I know, but there's like 20 or
So
30
Foxborough,
food
Bayside,
service
Naperville.
providers in Wisconsin.
And they all only got the one bid back. It's only Airmark bid on
But I
it.
don't understand that.
Feels like collusion, doesn't it? Like business collusion. I mean, I shouldn't say this in a recording, but you know what I mean? And
No.
you wonder why other companies didn't bid in.
Well,
Right.
I do wonder, so that is a question, because if there's one option and the one option we know has consistently been not a fan favorite among students and staff, and, you know, maybe not, but I understand things are improving, but I still think we should have options, and that not having them is worrisome to me about the process or why we don't.
Well, I trust that they've worked on it for months, so the 3 area business managers walked through the RFP process and got.
So it's on me to better understand the RFP process, I guess.
Who does Nicolay?
But
Same one.
Earmark.
Earmark now.
They didn't go out to bid because they just started with Earmark this year, so they didn't want to go out to bid so soon. So it's just the K-8s.
So that's, I know, I also, like, we have these wellness policies we need to work on, these community groups we're supposed to convene to talk about wellness policies, talk about nutrition. And again, equity lens here possibly, like thinking about how are we collaborating with the community on this? What other options are there? I saw that Madison does like a farm to school pipeline where they are connected to local people. Like I don't know, I feel like as nutritious as Aramark is going to be, I don't want to eat that's a lot of that food. I'm just sharing in a very easy opinion, so I'll say that. But you know,
Well, I mean, some, like Nicolay used to do their own person, but that's a whole.
these
nother-
are my treats.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I also was picking up the food during COVID, the free meals, and I was like, this
Yeah, that was not good.
is very processed.
During COVID was. a
And
whole
this,
nother-
and it might meet the standards, but like health and our kids' bodies is like a primary component of their well-being.
And I think, to be fair, I think all districts look like that during COVID, because it had to be like, take and go.
Sure, right.
So none of it was
Possibly,
great during
yeah,
COVID,
possibly, yeah.
I mean, in a perfect world, you have like a community garden.
Right, and
And the
I know,
kids harvest and they make their own
I know it's
salads.
not a
I
perfect
mean,
world,
there's odds of that happening.
but I want to know what our options
Well,
are.
more to
I
the
wanna
point,
know
I think a
our
list of who did the RF, you know, who was our target audience, who did we send it to?
I can get the, I mean.
Yeah, and like,
Usually
just
why didn't
because
we
we
get
send
it
an
in
a bunch of
RFP,
different
like, then
places?
do we, like, we couldn't reach out.
I mean,
like,
so to
Cisco or
contrast
Tide
that-
Or whatever, and say, why didn't you do this?
So to contrast that, the same process that we used for this RFP is the one we used for our facilities RFP, and we got multiple people that applied. So it's,
Yeah,
you know
so
what I
I'd like to
mean? So-
understand the current environment, I guess, to make this choice, but
I wonder if like, if the RFP had the price point for what we can pay for lunches, that might have. priced
Right, I'd
out
like to
some
well, they use our
users or-
rubric
Yeah, I
from
don't know.
DPI.
well, that's what I'd like to know when we bring this back. I'd like to understand, that, or learn before we bring this back, that's all. And since we don't have a
We're all
contract,
disappointed.
yeah,
Cool.
totally. Okay, so there's no action to be taken. Are there any future agenda topics we would like to propose? Is there a motion to adjourn? Second.
Hi.
All in favor?
Hi,
Thank you, everybody.
thank
And
you
we've actually
all.
worked 2 hours. We started at 7, so we still,
Yeah, just over 2 hours.
so still, okay.
I'm not clock watching.
What?
I'm not clock watching.
I was,
Anthony's out of town
I
tonight.
got some